a couple different parts of strength. So maybe you can define what strength is, touch on maximal, explosive, and isometric, and strength endurance as these components. And so for those listening, this is a denser portion of it, but these are really important distinctions when you're talking about your training.
Yeah, so strength is the ability to produce force. Maximal strength is going to be the ability to produce the highest force regardless of the time it takes, which can be much more seen in like the way that you would see powerlifters often do squat, bench press, and deadlift, where it's slow, it's a grinder, but it goes up. Explosive strength is going to be able to produce that high relative force, but in a shorter time period, which is going to have more impact on sport performance generally, because there's almost always a time component to the sport, and being able to beat someone to a point, and you're applying your force, even if it's equal force, but before they are, on a force velocity curve, yours goes like this and theirs goes like this, and they might have the same peak, but you got there first. You're gonna win those interactions. Strength endurance is going to be, basically how high of a force can you produce repeatedly without decline. That's going to, particularly in jiu-jitsu, often manifest itself in isometric strength, which is, most movements are going to have a eccentric and concentric portion to them, like a shortening and lengthening of the muscle, but the isometric is going to be more like a static position, a static stretch position of the muscle, and how much can you kind of resist movement in that, like what some strength coaches would call yielding strength. And in jiu-jitsu, it's going to often be how much strength endurance, how long can you apply relatively high forces in that, like if you're trying to finish a guillotine or a head and arm or something, and how long can you keep squeezing hard enough to finish it. So yeah, I think those are all the ones you ask, relatively colloquial definitions, but that's what you get from me because I'm a history major, not a yeah.
So if, let's say someone, I mean, obviously everyone should use an app like this. I think that's the underlying, the promotion, the unpaid promotion here that I'm shouting. But if someone is not, how does the average person start to think about these things? Like, okay, they now understand what the difference is between isometric strength and maximal strength. They've probably attempted some sort of ballpark maximal strength thing in their life, but they can introduce these other things in. If they're trying to reduce the risk of injury, not get completely jacked up like we've both become via the sport, what should they focus their attention on in weighing out these different types of strength pursuits?
Yeah. So as someone kind of does well, yeah. So if someone kind of does a bit of a self-assessment in this, which takes honesty often with themselves, and they can see, I am strong, but my arms burn out, or, if we get in like a certain positions, I'm able to win that out. But if it's a more explosive shooting for a takedown, something like that, I have a hard time. They can, from that, begin to assess like, all right, more of my time relatively might need to be spent in this area, in maximal strength and explosive strength and strength endurance. If that self-assessment comes back with, I'm bad at all of these things, then it's simpler in a way, because you don't have to ebb and flow or focus on one more than the other. It can be pretty balanced. And if you have no, real strength training background, it's simple too, because everything is going to help. When
Right.
the general strength goes up, it's going to kind of be a high tide that raises all boats there. And until you're more proficient, you won't really need to put, like, your explosive strength is going to get better even without directly addressing explosive strength.
Mhm.
But typically, if someone's trying to set up their own program, assuming they're going to need a little bit of all of these things. And it would be very rare that someone in jiu-jitsu is like so maximally strong that they don't need and even if they didn't do any general strength or maximal strength work, they're still going to get force production qualities from explosive strength work. So that would be, unless you're coming like from my background, world elite powerlifting into jiu-jitsu, you probably need to do some moderate reps, 3 to 8 reps that feels hard, that you're trying to move it slow, but it feels heavy. My friends at the Massonomics podcast, they have a shirt that says weight is a number, heavy is a feeling. And, so that's maximal strength.
Right.
Heavy is a feeling, if it feels hard. Explosive strength qualities, you're going to be able to develop through moving your body through space as fast as possible, sprinting and jumping, throwing medicine balls, throw a kettlebell, throw a basketball that you cut open and fill with sand and duct tape up, whatever gets the job done.
No excuses.
And then strength endurance, lift a moderate weight. So not something that feels heavy necessarily, as many times as you can, and that could be up to, probably 20 to 40 reps. It could be time based, that you're going to do it as many times as you can in 30 seconds, then the next week as many times as you can in 40 seconds, then 50 seconds, then 60 seconds, then, maybe take a easy week and start again with 5 or 10 more pounds. Think in movement categories rather than specific exercises necessarily. Some kind of squat, some kind of press, some kind of upper body pulling, some kind of twisting, some kind of lunging exercise. All of those going to be useful, much more so than, and some kind of hip hinging, hip extension exercise, particularly with jiu-jitsu, something that tends to be very demanding, damaging, somewhere in that spectrum on the body. Particularly with age, as the older someone gets, the more varied their training history and injury history likely is with that. So you don't feel like, well, this article said that front squat is the best exercise for jiu-jitsu for your lower body, and it's like, why? Who cares? Like, because if front squat is ouch, my shoulder hurts, my wrist hurts, my knees hurt, whatever, but leg press, it doesn't, then leg press is a better exercise for you, because, until the mat is littered with squat racks and leg presses and everything, like, it's all general.